Alright, hi everyone, welcome back to Steam Flow. The new season of Last Epoch is here with the Beneath Ancient Skies update, and I've been testing it on the Steam Deck OLED. This patch brought a lot of performance optimizations, controller upgrades, and UI quality of life changes. So in this video I'm gonna break it all down from FPS and battery life to how well it actually plays on the handheld. So without further ado, let's get into it. Now, for anyone not familiar, Last Epoch is a fast-paced ARPG in the style of Diablo and Path of Exile. It's had a big year with its 1.0 launch, and this new update brings another season of content alongside tons of back-end improvements. The devs have also adjusted performance targets, and now they're officially recommending playing this on medium settings for 4GB cards and for the Steam Deck specifically. But does this actually hold well in practice? We're gonna find out with this video. So I'm jumping straight into performance. When you launch the game on very low, or even medium settings, you are gonna be looking at about 50 to 60 FPS. But the reality is, as soon as you progress even a little bit into the game, FPS starts to dip. No matter what preset you use, whether very low or medium or even high, the game eventually settles around 40 FPS, and in big chaotic battles it can dip as far as 35. That makes me think that the devs are definitely targeting around 30 or 40 FPS, more in the ranges of 30 for the endgame, as the safe baseline for Steam Deck, even though they recommend medium settings. Now at medium settings, 40 FPS actually feels really good overall. Some zones dip under that, but compared to last season, there is a little bit of improvement. The game feels smoother and it holds up much better in regular play. Now, one of the biggest changes they did is they enabled texture streaming across all of the game's assets. Texture streaming basically means that they will try to load only the textures you're currently looking at, and this will improve performance just a little bit. They've also introduced a system that will limit the number and types of visual effect lights. They have adjusted lighting and shadows and vegetations across all of the different zones to overall improve performance on every device. Now here's where things actually get interesting, specifically for the Steam Deck. The game doesn't really seem to be fully utilizing the Deck's GPU. For example, if we set it to medium settings, we're gonna get around 40 FPS. But if you manually force the GPU clock speed, you can squeeze more frames out. For example, pushing the GPU to around 1600 MHz will bump FPS closer to 45 to 49 in most zones. The catch is that battery life will drop significantly with about an hour. So it seems to me that developers are intentionally limiting the FPS that you can get so they can balance between good visuals, smoothness, and battery life, especially on the Steam Deck. Now, if you combine that forced GPU clock with very low settings, you can even hit 45 to 60 FPS. The range is big between 45 and 60 because it really depends on how many enemies are on screen and how many flashy effects are going off. Some zones will feel amazing at near 60 FPS, while others will drag down closer to the mid-40s. So it comes down to what you really value. Default medium at 40 FPS, best balance of visual stability and battery life, or manual GPU forcing, again at medium settings, higher FPS, closer to 60, but with a much bigger hit to battery life. I personally think medium settings without forcing the clocks is the sweet spot as the developers intended for most players. But if you don't mind sacrificing battery, or if you're playing with a charger nearby, the option is also there. Speaking of battery, this is the next thing I want to talk about. On medium settings at 40 FPS, battery life on the OLED lands at about 3 hours and 45 minutes, which is pretty fantastic for a game of this scale. Now this is when playing offline. When playing online, you can expect to drop 15-20 minutes, and if you cap it to 30 FPS, you can stretch that battery life to about 4 hours. So there isn't much of a gain. I think the game feels better uncapped at 40 than at 30, so I would stick with that. Now I wanted to also mention Lossless Scaling. Lossless Scaling actually works really well in Last Epoch on both LCD and OLED. I think it's because the character's details are small enough that artifacting isn't noticeable, and input lag is also basically non-existent. The only issues I noticed is with text and map flickering. So the quest text that is on the right hand on the UI, you will notice that flickering all the time, and with the minimap, both with the minimap or with the full screen overlay map, you're gonna notice flickering as well. On the LCD, you can easily hit 60 FPS and it will work really well, and on the OLED, even on medium settings, you can hit 90 FPS most of the time, sometimes dipping to about 70 in some fights. Here is a video of me playing it on the OLED with close to 90 FPS using Lossless Scaling. That's 2 times Lossless Scaling. If you want to try high settings with lossless scaling, that also works, and you usually sit around 55 to 60 FPS as well. However, battery life on high will drop to about 3 hours and 15 minutes. Now let's talk about controller and UI. This is where some of the big quality of life changes has happened. This update massively improves controller support and the UI. Controller feels great overall. It did feel great in the last season as well. However, a few menus still require using the right analog stick as a mouse, but most of the interface is now fully navigable with the D-pad or with the analog stick. They've also fixed annoying quirks like movement not being disabled when menus were open, and they added proper navigation for things like the chat window, vendors, and faction switching. There is also UI scaling in this game, which is always a plus on the Steam Deck. There's multiple different scales that you can toggle through. I think in the standard one, the text is just a bit too small, but the large option works and looks great on the deck's smaller screen. You'll get tons of options like item name longevity, loot filters, and even settings to hide low-value gold labels so your screen doesn't get spammed with junk. Performance in the menus is smoother too. Dash, skill trees, cosmetics, settings all load with fewer hitches. It's definitely a huge step up from earlier versions. So in conclusion, I think the game runs absolutely amazing on the Steam Deck right now. You can expect around 40 FPS on medium and maybe 30 FPS in the end game. Battery life will average at around 3 hours and 45 minutes on the OLED, and the new controller and UI improvements make the whole experience much smoother. I think this is the best the game has ever run on the deck. If you never checked it out before but you always wanted to, I think this is the right time to jump in. Now, if you're interested in more deck reviews like this, make sure to check out my Steam Curator page where I post short reviews and recommendations for every game I test. That's gonna be it for this video. If you find it helpful, consider leaving a like, subscribe for more Steam Deck content. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next video.